All right, recording 2, let's get it done. So we're going to talk about reviewing economics at this point. We're going to go back through supply, demand, all those things you probably haven't heard in years, but don't worry, it's going to be a fun time. We're going to get through it. So in the beginning of our review of economics, we're going to first have to figure out what 2 main concepts are. First is demand. If you demand something, then this is something that you want and that you can't afford and that you actively have a definitive plan to buy it. For some reason, that's the part that some people get confused on, because they might say, well, I want to go to Starbucks and I can afford to go to Starbucks, but they don't really have a plan to go drive to Starbucks, right? Demand means it's something that you have a definitive plan to buy. Wants are all the unlimited desires that you want. Now this goes back to the idea of scarcity that we had talked about earlier. We have unlimited wants and desires. At the end of the day, I would love to have all the money. I would like to own all the cars. I would like to own all the houses. I would like to own everything else, right? I want unlimited things. But that's not really what we have. There's a scarcity of time, there's a scarcity of resources, there's a scarcity of finances. So we have to think about what the relationship in between price and quantity is if we cannot afford an unlimited amount of everything. So you'll hear me say 2 different terms in this class. The first one is demand. Demand is just the idea of, at a whole bunch of different price points, about how much would you want. Quantity demanded is at a particular price point. How many would you want? If sweatshirts are $10 each, how many do you want? If boxes of cake mix are on sale for $1, how many do you want, right? That's the quantity demanded aspect of it. So this all kind of relates to the law of demand, which the law of demand is just a way that we kind of have a relationship of saying all things remaining the same. So if we change nothing else, the higher the price of something, the less you want of it, right? Super easy. Let's think about what that looks like graphically. So let's say that we have a graph looking at the relationship in between prices and quantities. So we always in economics have prices on this vertical line, which might seem counterintuitive. It's actually the one thing that people in introduction to economics mess up the most often is switching this prices and quantity line. Along the bottom right here, we'll have quantity. So this measures at the bottom how much we want of something, while along the side is what price it cost. So let's say that we have a market for, I don't know, coffee, because my mind's always on coffee. All right, well, let's think about what this really means. Well, if coffee is $10, I'm probably not going to get one, right? My quantity that I want is probably 0. Okay, all right. Well, let's say that coffee drops down to $8. Well, at $8, like that's a little pricey, but if I'm real desperate, I might buy one coffee. Okay, sure. Well, let's keep thinking about prices. Okay, so let's say that maybe we dropped it down to a $6 coffee. All right, this is getting more reasonable. This is getting like related to Starbucks prices. So let's go ahead and have 2. I'll get 2 at $6. At $4, maybe that's a good deal. That's a good deal. You know, I'm going to go there 3 times this week. If it's $2, like we're going every day. It's every work day we're getting a Starbucks coffee. Okay, so what happens when we connect these lines? Ooh, I'm so bad at drawing. I promise I'll work on it and try to keep clear handwriting, but I'm not always the best at it. All right, let's see. Yeah, assume that line actually touches the points. All right, so the line itself we call demand. It's the relationship of how much you want at all the prices. So demand is the idea that I would want 1 at $8 and I'd want 3 at $4, right? It's all of it. So the line itself is demand. Now the individual points on the line, let's say we're doing this little individual point right here. We're at $4, I wanted 3 coffees. That would be the quantity demand. How much I want at a specific price point. All right, you got that so far? Super easy. That's what the law of demand basically says, is other things remaining the same. As these prices go up, I want less things. You know, it's not as scary when you start to think about it, right? All right, well, let's keep thinking about a couple of things. Well, there might be some things that change the price and quantity of things that are demanded. So let's, oops, didn't mean to go that far. Let's think about maybe a substitution effect. Because we have substitution effect and income effects. Substitution effects mean, okay, well, is there something else that I could demand, right? So maybe I can drink tea or coffee. Assume that I have like a latte here, and here's the tea, right? I can drink tea or coffee. Okay, well, if the coffee gets too expensive, if we have like $10 coffees, I'm gonna say, no, you know what? I'm just gonna make some tea at home. I might substitute to another good. But let's say that coffee goes on sale. Coffee is so cheap. They're running a special. I might decide, you know what? I don't need to make tea at home. No, thank you. We're gonna go for that latte, right? So how things can be substituted for one another, this sort of affects how much we're going to buy of something. It affects how price changes, affects the quantity that I demand of something. So there might be something better or something alternative that I can switch to. Then we also have the idea of income effects. So income effects are the idea that you might buy more or less of some goods depending on your income. Let's think about like the cheap ramen. I'm sure that everybody's had kind of like those broke days in our late teens, early 20s, where we're eating way too many ramen packets. Those like little 10-cent noodles that you get from the store. All right. Well, income effects say, well, that's sort of an inferior good, right? It's not really our preference good. So as my income goes down, I'm going to buy more of it. As my income goes up, I'm probably going to buy less of it. There's some sort of income effect to my relationship with ramen. There's also normal goods. So we had inferior goods, things you don't really buy when things are good. And then normal goods, the things that as you get raises, you tend to buy more of, right? So let's say that like this is the good mac and cheese. This is that truffle mac and cheese that you get at the really nice restaurant, right? Well, there's income effects for that as well. So if times are hard, if you have a decrease in income, you're probably not going to go get that very fancy like $20 plus truffle mac and cheese. You're going to reduce your consumption of it because there's a change in your income. Your income could also go up. You get that big raise at work. You could move to the next position in your company and you could have a massive income raise. Well, if your income goes up, you might buy more of this very nice mac and cheese. So there's income effects that relate how much I'm demanding of something relative to not only the price changes of that good, but sort of my own price change, right? My own income, which is sort of the price for my time based upon how much I've put into it and how much I'm earning. Okay, so we have these law of demands of how things change. I kept some examples in the slides in case you want to go back to them. I'm probably going to end up drawing out a lot of these along the way so we can talk about how they're built, but I wanted you to have something to reference besides just my terrible handwriting. But what we'll see here is notice that we have points A, B, C, D, and E. Well, at E, this is the idea of we have a $2.50 candy bar. Well, when candy bars are $2.50, I'm probably not buying many of them, right? That's kind of pricey. So maybe we might have very few that are bought in society. The quantity demanded at $2.50 might actually be kind of low. Maybe it's 5 million candy bars a week. Let's say we lower the price, right? We go down this vertical side and over on the horizontal. Okay, maybe we get to 150. $1.50. Okay. All right. Well, that's cheaper. That's more affordable. More people like at the checkout line might be like, I can do $1.50. That's fine. That's fine. Maybe at $1.50, we sell the quantity demanded amount of 10 million candy bars. Maybe there are 10 million candy bars that people want when their price are $1.50. That's our quantity demanded, right? And then maybe point A, the quantity demanded when candy bars are 50 cents. Maybe 22 million people are wanting that candy bar when the price is 50 cents. So as we can see, more and more people are going to want things the closer the price gets to zero. Now we're going to think about the supplier side in a minute, because it's not feasible to sell every candy bar in the world for 50 cents, right? Like that just does not make financial sense. But demand does not care about if it's reasonable to sell something or not. That's going to matter when we bring the supply and demand graphs together. Demand just says at this price point, how many people will want it. And then when we connect all those dots together, we have a demand line. Okay, cool. So this kind of says our willingness to pay, right? This says at like point A with 22 million candy bars, people are willing to pay about 50 cents each for that many of them. If there were much less candy bars, let's say that there were only 5 million candy bars. Well, that's not many candy bars, right? You might be willing to pay a little bit more to get one of those few candy bars. So my willingness to pay for it might be higher, closer to point E, because there's so few of them that I'm willing to pay maybe $2.50 for one. The smaller the quantity that's available, the higher the price someone's going to be willing to pay for it. So if you hear me also just call this demand curve as a willing or an ability to pay curve, it just means how much would people be willing to pay at each of these points. The willingness to pay also measures the marginal benefit, right? So what is marginal benefit? Remember, I said marginal means one more of something. A means, or at point A where we had 22 million candy bars, that means at 22 million and one candy bar, I'm willing to pay about 50 cents for it, right? Maybe a little less, about 50 cents for it. If we only had 5 million candy bars, then the marginal benefit, the extra bit of happiness that I would get from that 5 millionth candy bar in society is probably closer to $2.50 because people are willing to pay for it. This means that that's close to what they are willing to pay for a good or service. All right, so there's many different ways that we can change demand that we have to think about because it's not always that we have the same relationship with the prices and quantity of a good. Oops, where did I just go?